What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to be going over my picks for February 8th, 2021. Before we do that, make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video. And yesterday, the picks were not that good, kind of today, was February 7th. Hopefully, you guys got a bunch of Super Bowl winnings to bet on college basketball on Monday. But I did get Indiana right over Iowa. But there was some crazy stuff. Well, Iowa losing another game is kind of insane. And the other big one was Drake dropping their first game of the season. And I know some of you, but we talk about that on here. And we gave out the money line underdogs of rematches. And the reason I believe Drake lost is back to back. They played the first one tough, and Valparaiso really has no business beating Drake. They've lost a bunch of games, but it's just tough back to back. And I recommend taking almost every money line. And if you took every money line, you would have still come out with some earnings. So it's important in these back to backs to look at the money lines, especially in these huge favorites here at the end. They're going to be dropping games. But it was not a good picks day, but I didn't make that many picks. But if you bet some of these money lines that I told you to look at, then you would have made out okay. But that's why we're just looking at money line underdogs and still continuing forward. It was one day, but I wanted to talk about that. That was a big, big upset. A lot of these big favorites are dropping games here at the end. Then Boise State losing was kind of a big one too. I did not expect them to lose to Nevada. So Nevada's pretty good. I mean, we already knew Nevada was good, but Boise State is really good. So that's good. And then Stanford continues to dominate. And Missouri State did pretty good. I like Missouri State. That's basically it. There's only a couple of back-to-backs on Monday, but let's get right into it. First game I wanted to cover was Eastern Kentucky at SIU Edwardsville. SIU Edwardsville is not that good. Eastern Kentucky can score a lot. SIU not so much. So I'm going to give up the points 8.5 against SIU Edwardsville, and I'm going to take Eastern Kentucky. And also make sure to check out the link in the description for the website, or I'm going to have all these picks. Next up is Quinnipiac at Fairfield. I like Quinnipiac here. These two just played each other. Quinnipiac dominated. It's a back-to-back, but I still like Quinnipiac here. But I would not, if you want to pull the trigger on Fairfield, it's a back-to-back, so feel comfortable doing that. And you can even feel comfortable pulling the money line on Fairfield, but I'm going to take Quinnipiac here for the back-to-back. Next up is East Carolina. Now, East Carolina is another team we've been writing here because people have been sleeping on them because they have had a bad season. But these past couple of games, they've been playing really well. They did lose to Memphis, but that's another reason you're getting value. They won the spread. And we bet them that game. And they beat Houston outright. And even these games, they're playing pretty well that they lost. They're playing the teams pretty well. So SMU is good, so just keep that in mind. But I think they're at home, and I would take the points here with ECU. Next up is Hampton at High Point. This is a rematch. And I think High Point won the first one pretty handily, but these teams are pretty even, and I'm going to take Hampton the second game, and I'm going to take the under as well because this game went under, and these teams are not that crazy on offense, so I'm fine taking the under on this one. especially in the second game. Next up is Gardner Webb at South Carolina Upstate. I'm going to take Gardner Webb here. They're a pretty good team. I mean, they're not pretty good, but they're good enough to beat South Carolina Upstate. So I'm going to take them giving up only 4.5. And then I'm going to take the over because South Carolina Upstate's defense is complete trash. Webb's is as well. So I think this will go over. But I think Webb will beat South Carolina State pretty well. South Carolina Upstate. Next up is UNC Greensboro versus Furman. And I like UNC Greensboro a lot. So I'm going to take them plus 3.5. I mean, they beat Citadel crazy. They just have some great wins, just dominant wins. So I'm going to go ahead and take them over Furman. Furman hasn't been, I don't think they've been playing. Yeah, they've dropped some games here. So I'm taking UNCG here. Next up is Lafayette, Loyola, Maryland at Lafayette. I took Lafayette yesterday, and I believe they got trashed on. Yep, they got dunked on pretty good. But it's a back-to-back, so we're going to take Lafayette. And Lafayette should have won the first game. So, like, Loyola, Maryland doesn't even win games, but they somehow pulled this one out. I'm going with Lafayette again. Some people might say, hey, you learned your lesson. Nope, we're going right back to it. Next up is Austin Peay at Tennessee Martin. Going to take Austin Peay. They've been pretty dominant here recently. So we're going to ride that out. And hopefully they dunk on Tennessee Martin. And you see Tennessee Martin's defense is really terrible. So that's why I think there's a potential for a blowout here. And then on this game, we also have the over. Since the Tennessee Martin's defense is really trash and Austin's offense is pretty good, I think there's a potential for them to score over 80. And then these guys, if they stick around 60 or 60 something, that's going to easily go over 143 in my perspective. Next up, Oregon State. Oregon State at Colorado. So Colorado, I like as a team, but I don't like them covering. See, ATS, they haven't been covering. So, and Oregon State is not that bad. So I'm going to take the points with Oregon State here. People love Colorado. I love Colorado, but I just don't think they can cover these big spreads anymore. And I would even look at the money line here because Colorado's won a bunch of games, or they dropped to Utah, but see, they drop these games every now and then. So it wouldn't amaze me if Colorado dropped this game. Next up is Abilene Christian. So Abilene Christian at Texas A&M. I like Abilene Christian a lot. Probably bet on them too much, but I'm going to take them again. Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. I just like their Abilene Christian's offense and defense. So I think they're going to take advantage of Texas A&M here. Next up is Ohio State at Maryland. I like Ohio State. They're one of my favorite teams as far as betting goes. They have a good offense, good defense. Maryland is okay, but I think Ohio State only giving up 3.5. They just played Iowa really well. They've played a lot of these teams really well, so I'm going to take Ohio State over Maryland. Maryland's not really covering either, so that's good news for us. So take Ohio State, dominant team right here. Next up, Grambling at Alcorn State. So Grambling is halfway decent. Alcorn State cannot play defense at all, so that's pretty good. And so I'm going to take Grambling. And also going to take the over. If Alcorn State really can't play defense, then this should be high scoring. And Grambling's defense is not the best either, so I anticipate this to go over 137.5. Next up, Oklahoma State at Kansas. Kansas is a really good team to bet against right now. Well, except for Kansas State, but I think I picked that game, but like, look at this. This is terrible. And they just haven't been playing well. Not only ATS, but just games in general. So, and Texas and Oklahoma State just beat Texas. So I think there's a good opportunity here. I don't know about good opportunity, but I just think just betting against Kansas is pretty good. And then San Jose State at San Diego State. Now this game, I love San Diego State as a team. They're just so dominant. But 26.5 is way too much. So instead, I'm going to go with the under because you have to remember San Diego State's San Diego State's defense is insane. And against a team like San Jose State, it should be pretty good. I think the only problem is San Diego State has been going over, but those are against halfway decent teams. So I'm hoping this will stay under the 145.5. The main thing here for me is San Diego State's defense. I feel like that's going to keep it under. Okay, then lastly, the big game. Or to me is a big game. It's Gonzaga at BYU. I'm going to take BYU. And I'm even comfortable taking BYU money line. And Gonzaga has not lost a game all season. But I think this is the game they lose. They haven't been playing that well in the first half recently. I mean, don't look at those first halves because I'm sure it's like pretty lopsided. Well, no, see, this one they lost the first half. So these are bad teams they haven't been playing the first halves well against. And so I think it's going to happen again. And BYU is actually a good team. So if all these teams are dropping games right now, this is one of Gonzaga's last games where they actually have the potential to drop it because they play BYU, and then the only other potential one they can lose is this St. Mary's. But other than that, Gonzaga's pretty set, and they haven't been playing well in the first half, and I think they're just going to give it up. They're at Brigham Young. We have upset City recently, Drake, and all these other teams. I think we're going to get upset here. So take BYU on the spread, and then if you're feeling, a little bit crazy, go with money line here. And then I'm also going to take the over, just in case I'm wrong on this other side. Then it's going to be a shootout. Like, look at both of these teams' offense. It's insane. They both have good defenses too, but the offenses are just insane. So I think this goes over pretty easily. Get that over while you still can. 155.5. So those are my picks for February 8th, 2021. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.